Rib is found in the words horrible, describe, contribute, dribble, diatribe. My mother always told us to be nice to each other. One day, one of us could give the other a kidney. My father's diatribes were daily. We woke up to yelling and we went to sleep to it, a jabbing kind. His accusations were questions that had no space to answer in between. My mother was mumble, ignore, silence. I told her I couldn't take it, that my shoulders were creeping towards my ears. The dentist said I was 15 and I had nothing to be stressed about. Why was I clenching my jaw? I bit him while he searched for cavities. My father's dribble cup at dinner was more of a spit cup, and he often had a clear one just to be extra gross. But he did appear to be a giant baby in a diaper at the bench seat with his flattened ass pillow to cushion the blow to the wood. A giant overgrown toddler still in diapers, requiring baby powder not to chafe. What did we contribute? He wanted to know. To the family, the income. Nothing, as he thought. We were just expenses. This monetization of us was an easy distancing. Describe to me, was it daytime or was it nighttime? The day my father told me that the bond Nana bought for college had been spent because we cost too much. It was day. The safe was in the closet behind the mirrors. There was nothing in there for me. Did this mean no college? Did this mean there would never be enough money? It meant the always guilt of wanting in flux with the manic of indulging. My father would never get secondhand. He said, we aren't poor. On our birthdays and at the diner, we could get whatever cut of meat we wanted. Lobster, crab, melted butter. White trash dynasty. We thought we were fancy. He thought he was too. Knowing nothing of Manhattan, San Francisco, the healthy, the farm to table, the tiny portion presentation, the minimalism, the world of fine dining where those serving have expertise to offer about what they can't afford to those who can and don't know. The always guilt and the white trash smorgasbord. The strange fixed hold of an undifferentiated melding of working and middle-class habits and truths to live by. But we had money. Money enough for nice things to replace the tasteless ones, but pride in the trashy. A self-loathing in my mother that kept her from buying nice things to adorn herself, an undeserving and an uncaring. Mother looked like a child post-art class. She was splotched, unkempt, seemingly happy. Mother was a messy, down-to-earth, garbage-mouthed woman who said all sorts of soothing expletives that made you let your guard down as if you'd been drinking. But she was exposing nothing. Mother was a fine picture of unleashed without limiting the humongous need for withholding. A husband who demeaned, who sexualized his children, was not something she could say she had. But a man who drank to oblivion in the armchair was a bit more acceptable. A man who called ranting through a wire, well-paid and miserable, blaming. A tension rising to a screeching pitch and all the children bedroom-bound and bound by the false security of staring into a blank wall, sat in their respective bedrooms. There was this unsettling, this seesaw into humor and banter at dinner time that was like a daily hazing. The love we felt for each other tottered on the ever-threatening tip of unhinging into fighting, bickering, truth-telling through the veneer of joking. We didn't love blatantly, as you'd expect, but in a sideways blatance that looked like a jovial demeaning. Exuberance and void, the tottering. We were the inhabitants of this precariously balanced extravagance. Horrible, whore, ribs bribe hole of mouth to clatter slowly. Don't make noise as you break. This is called Suburb Which These Beings Populated. Between 5 and 10 hours a night, clenched jaw where there could be ease. Your less affected siblings sleep, your holiday brothers bicker good cheer, ornament, disguise, for the sake of narration, punctuation, accidental sister, sold out, sold for sake of argument, winning, deposit her into the world, cloak of shame. The northern great-grandmother, a set of strong arms folded, on the wood floor of the landing where steps lead down and steps lead up. A food store mom sells solace to abstinence and starts the car. A day captive mother makes night rant escape. A whimsy and dare you to fuck with, stuck rubber mallet flat by escape route man. A gimmick mother takes away at many a day and numb herself. Monarch's prescription. A tractor trailer lumbers cross country, spills M&Ms, Skittles, bars of candy into someone else's pre-family family van. Crying and hands teetering like gracious, sugary small afternoon burn down, like father who was too, a spike upward and a slick down. Decembro. This is inspired by a movie called Don't Swallow My Heart, Alligator Girl. In December, a town trying to be a city. Whistlers and crosswalks, every union was a what it could be. The Spaniard's laugh was lazy. I couldn't feel what he saw in me. He didn't understand guilt after drinking. Simple, but not always kind. I get sorry to my insides, craving a man to peer in, to count the coins and return with a tally. These layers missing when even the cinematography has narrative. Your brother is dead, but I am free. He didn't understand why I was crying. Historied, defenses up, after hurting, jaguar girl, alligator woman, chunks of history missing. Better than plus rape plus fathers who call their offspring rubbish floating down a river. A craving past the berry shade of scrutiny, a love that disguises itself as a war cry. I'm so fucking tired of white guys and their white dogs. They walk around with headphones on, entitled, stupidly depriving themselves of one of their inferior to begin with senses for navigating the world, further handicapping themselves by staring down and plowing forward. And they walk as if no one else exists or if they wish we'd stop existing. They are convinced they are doing everything perfectly and so they should just be allowed to pass through the world, everyone else be damned. And one of these assholes had his entitlement on a long, loose leash and at the end was bobbing a small white dog, while he rounded a corner with wooden fencing around the yard so that all that was visible was his bobbing, headphoned head into me and my two dogs, both larger, reactive, on leash, and held close to me. After doing absolutely nothing to prevent or assuage the situation, he looked up at my face, distorted into the words I've convinced myself not to say while representing my business in the world, and said to me, "Is everything okay?" But he said it the way you would say, "Is there a problem here?" And if I leave the bay for the record, this will be why. These motherfucking Bay Area passive-aggressive assholes. Entitled, deliberately dumbed down, putting all living beings at risk around them so they can blissfully continue in their bubble of slight sensory inebriation. Their little white dogs made into bait. And of course they stare at you. Stare at your big dogs. Why don't you get your dogs? Why don't you get dogs you can handle? Why don't you just relax? I don't handle any other living being unless they can consent to their own subordination and are paying for it. That's supposed to be funny. I work with them and I take time to understand and learn them. These dogs have histories. They have trauma, they have reason, to protect. They do not have the luxury of feeling safe enough in the world to mute their surroundings. And not to mention, despite your false beliefs of invincibility, you too are susceptible. An ex of mine died while wearing his headphones, walking to a bakery job at 6 a.m. in New York, while in a crosswalk, completely on the right side of all laws at the moment. A dump truck, backing up speedily without working hazard lights or sounds, ran him over and dragged him. This wise ass was the voice of New York for me. Half Irish, half Puerto Rican, deep-voiced and cocky, he had kicked a heroin addiction by 20 and not lived to see legal drinking age. If some sick bastard could laugh at this, it'd be him. Even so, if I leave the Bay, I can't go to New York because New York is no longer there. New York, like the Bay, has become overrun by white boys with their white dogs, headphoned and sensory deprived. And I do know, on some level, this is also them coping.